This is Sam's Trains, and welcome to the fifth episode of the podcast. I am joined today with Zach and Chris from the Wichita Toy Train Club. How you guys doing today?
Doing well. Yeah, we're doing great.
Yeah, again, thanks for coming on. Would you mind kind of introducing yourselves and kind of sharing a little bit about how you got into the hobby and stuff like that?
Yeah, you want Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Zachariah, and really hobby. I've always been in the high. It's harder to remember a time when I wasn't. Start with the little wooden Thomas stuff, and then it's always Thomas, something Thomas related. Back when all the Thomas movies were still the actual models, not the animated stuff that they got now. And moving on up, I think the Polar Express was one of the bigger things that brought me into O Gauge because Lionel got that model out so quick. So
I'm Chris Meister, otherwise on YouTube and anywhere, Instagram known as Take Two Charlie. I really got into the model railroading community, kind of like Zach did as a young kid with Thomas when they still were doing all the real models and not the animated stuff. And I personally still would favor the models over the animated stuff. Um, but ever since we grow up with Thomas, yeah, as kids we wanted trains. We get wooden trains, and then we start looking at model trains and getting like O scale train sets and whatnot. And that's really how I kind of get got into the hobby from a very young age. And I think, like you said, you go back so far to where you can't remember anymore, and that's really where it started. I've just kind of always been into it and always loved model railroading.
yeah,
That's a very cool story. I definitely got started with Thomas as well. I always had like a wooden railway, and I would build in the living room. It just kind of stuck with me going in, and so yeah. So and then I think my first set was the Hogwarts Express set, and then from then it just kind of kept growing and growing, and it always stuck with me and stuff like that. So that's cool. So do you guys besides going to the club and stuff, do you have any personal layouts at home?
Yeah,
you,
I've
you're
got,
you're the bigger one there. So
I've got, so I don't primarily stick to one scale, which is halfway a nightmare, but also a lot of fun. So like my primary layout, I primarily go to is O scale and G scale. In my basement, I've got a probably, I don't know, how big would you say that is? Maybe like 15 feet long,
yeah,
15 feet long by like
6 or 8 feet.
8 or so feet wide uh, tabletop layout with an oval for the outer layout and kind of like a dog bone shape for the second loop with a yard and whatnot on the second room in my back room of my basement. Um, but yeah, I do mostly O scale and G scale. I've got an outdoor layout outside as well, and then a HO scale layout. I dove into HO scale for a long time, and probably around sixth through eighth grade, I was really heavily into the O scale, and I've got a O scale layout, or not O scale, excuse me, HO scale layout that is like 5.5 wide by 12 or so long, and that's really what I've got at home. Just those main three things. Like I said, it's kind of a nightmare to be in so many scales at once because there's always something to do, and so it kind of gets overwhelming. But you know, it's the love for model railroad.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. What about you, Zach? Do you have a personal layout or
I have that's kind of a mine is it's always somehow evolved into something different over it's always been something different. Recently what it is really just a circle. And what the plan is the club has a modular layout. When they started building that, we were going to come up with something that was close to it. That way, we wouldn't get restricted if we sold the house or anything like that. That and it could also obviously match up into the club's O scale layout, or they're modular anyway. So, but I haven't gotten very far. I do a little bit and then I get nervous and I'm going to screw something up, so then I stop. That's really what it comes down to. That then I want to run a train, so then I got to clean everything up so I can run a train because I get bored. That's what it comes down to most of the time.
Running trains and like scenery work. Running trains a lot of times probably like overtakes
The
the
scenery,
wanting to do scenery work,
right?
stuff like that. I feel.
Yeah, I've definitely had that problem as well. When I initially started my 4x8 layout, it was just a sheet of plywood with some loops of track, and so I was really nervous about starting my mountain that I had planned out for it, and I hesitated for like at least 2 or 3 months, and I finally just said I'm gonna get it done so I can enjoy some scenery with some trains. So that worked out, and I think a lot of this hobby and stuff is you have the ability to start over and do something new, and you always have that creative outlet as you go along, so you can change it anytime you want and stuff like that. So I think that's very cool. So the reason why I had you guys on the podcast today is I'm really curious personally what you guys do at the train club. So I guess the first question I'm going to shoot you is, how did you get involved with the train club?
Okay, yeah. So the way I got started, I mean, so 2004 Polar Express movie came out. That was a big thing, especially when you're younger and everything. And when Lionel came out with their first Polar Express starter set, and that I think that Christmas I got that, and within the next year we had found the Train Club, and that's really how I kind of got involved in it because we're mainly an three rail O scale and a little bit of S club. So that was a great place for me to be able to go and see all kinds of different stuff that you can do within the hobby, and stuff like that.
Um, I I got into the club, I think, when I was about 5 years old, which was just 2 or so years before
Yeah.
you. And I don't remember everything, but I knew a train club, and we wanted to, like you said, we were in three rail O scale, and that was primarily what we were into at the time, and that's what I had. My dad and I. So my dad and I both went to the club and got a membership, and kind of been going since then. And it's just always been around.
Yeah.
It's always kind of been in your mind
Right.
all the time, and it's always been there since we can remember.
Interesting. So, with you saying you being a member and stuff and you having the ability, this is kind of the place where you go to run trains. Is it kind of like the case where you're just like super stressed out on like a Friday night and you just go to the club and run trains?
Yeah. I mean, when we first kind of got into it, it was there was always a Thursday night. I mean, every Thursday we would come. Everybody would come down. We'd be running trains, just hashing it out with everybody, and that was the big thing. Um, so, but
And, and
all
then, sorry.
all the way up till we had to move out of that building. Um, we hadn't really gotten back into the groove of that since we've been into this newer building now. But it's always still kind of in the back of our minds. We're always, we're open Saturdays, so we're always down here Saturdays or something when we're just ready to run a train or something. Yeah.
And especially like for me as a kid, especially when the club was still at Twin Lakes and we did a lot of the traveling shows. Train shows were a huge thing for me. I was always excited to go to the club train shows because you get to run and show off your trains in front of other people and have fun.
That's very cool. Yeah. I definitely think I don't know how many clubs are around the United States and stuff like that, but kind of what is your club's caliber? Like how well known are you, I guess per se? Are you really well known in Wichita?
And Wichita, I think we've kind of gone up and down. So when we were in Twin Lakes, I don't know if we were that well known. And then for 3 or 4 years, we didn't have a one place we were. We were looking for a building. So our old modular layout was at shows, at some museums, anywhere we could get it, or we could actually show we're here, we exist. Then a benefactor bought us this building, and ever since then we've kind of just been trying to do the same thing. There's still every now and again we get people that say we had no idea you guys were back here, but at the same time there's we're getting to the point where we hear people, it's like, oh yeah, we've heard of you guys. So it's I think it's give and take sometimes.
I think with getting the building and being in down more closer to downtown Wichita, where there's a lot of the action and everything going on and a lot of events, I think that's really helped get like the club a lot more exposure and more people knowing that there's a model train club. Like if you want to go see model trains that are actually running and a lot of layouts, go to the Wichita Toy Train Club in downtown. I think, you know, in Twin Lakes, and especially when we didn't have a building, it's
Right.
really hard for people to know that we were there and that something like that exists in this city.
I think something else that helps out with that is just 2 blocks down the street is the Transportation Museum. I mean, we have a Santa Fe Northern that just sits on a bridge up there that everybody passes by. I mean, every now and again we get posters that are up there, and everybody knows about the Great Transportation Museum. So you can't miss it. So we, you know, us and them, we always do a lot of back and forth with customers and stuff too. So.
Yeah, so about your experience with customers, you know, I'm sure you have little kids that come in from the community and such that get eye level with the trains and watch them run. So what do you do community wise?
We're within this building here, of course, you can see our big S scale layout back there. It's they went really all out with it, especially the giant mountain. It's gigantic. The O scale layout, especially our modular, has always been more kid oriented. Um, while you know something like that S scale back there is really cool. It looks really nice. I mean, you know, a kid walks in, he watches, you know, you watch the train, you run around and follow the train for 5 or 6 minutes, and you're done. You know, there's nothing more to do. Our O scale layout has been intentionally push buttons. You know, any accessory that moves, it's on here, and it's got a push button. They come up here, they can, you know, the old post-war barrel unloaders, the log unloaders, you know, the American Flyer stuff, anything that can moves, you know, it's on here. And then along with what we call a little racetrack, we have over on one wall a couple post-war ZW80s that have been stepped down a little bit. Let them run a train, you know.
Really hands-on.
Yeah, exactly. It's you know, you tell a kid you move this and make that train go. I mean, you know, their eyes light up and everything. So
I think that makes a really special connection with the Wichita Toy Train Club, because not really any place you can just go and grab and play with trains, especially if you don't have a train yet and you want to go see something like that. I think that makes something, you know, really special in a kid's eyes to always remember he wants to go play trains or wants to get a train, and that also may pique their interest to wanting to get into model railroading, especially if they're young and, you know, wanting to get into it in the future.
Yeah, that's very cool. And oh, go ahead. Did you have something else?
Oh no,
Okay, okay. You looked like you were gonna say something. Sorry. So another reason kind of why I brought you guys up is one of the videos that I personally watched was the review of the Lion Chief Santa Fe Hudson. That was my first engine that I like ever bought with my entire own money. So you guys seem to kind of work together on YouTube. Do you kind of want to kind of share a little story behind that as well?
yeah, I mean, is that one that we did at the train show?
that was the one we did at the train show on this new modular. That one was
That was, I think, our first video on the new modular, wasn't it?
yeah, and it was completely by the seat of our pants.
Yeah, so we have a train show every year in September that the club puts on, and that video specifically, we're just like, we should do a review tonight because we're staying at the club, or not the club, at the train show that night, and it's kind of just by the whim of our seats, just kind of like, you want to do this? Let's do it, and it's actually gotten an impressive amount of views.
Yeah, I think so.
For the video, but I mean, the YouTube channel. So originally, the YouTube channel kind of started off with me asking for forgiveness rather than permission, because at the time, I think I was a junior board member on the board for.
I don't even think it was that yet.
Was it not that yet?
I don't even think it was that yet. I think that
So
was later.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, I think
So.
Yeah, it's like 2012 or something like that.
Oh, okay. I don't remember exactly, but so a long time ago. I just was always saying to the club members that we should have a YouTube channel and get, you know, it can kind of spread word about the club and promote the hobby as a whole and show that there's a lot of trains going on here and everything and just promote it. But I never really heard anything about it. So one day I kind of just like sat down, made an email for the YouTube channel, and then made the YouTube channel and kind of just pressed make. But after I did that, I started making videos for the Saturday open hours that we had of just trains running all the time. If you go way back in the memories of the YouTube channel, you can see our grand opening, and that was probably one of the first couple videos that I made. And it's just ever since then kind of been on a roll of creating videos every once in a while when we can and promoting the hobby and whatnot. And then the ambassador club started to show up.
Yeah. So what? 2015, Lionel started a ambassador club, if I could say that word, program that they're trying a new way to outreach, any new hobbyists or stuff, and anything to get their name out, right? Kind of a good faith of goodwill, to get their name in the hobby. And that first year, I think Chicagoland up in Chicago was the only really one that knew about it. And we had a member that was originally from Chicago, so he knew some guys that talked about it. So in 2016, we entered that program, and they send us product, and they had some a list of requirements they wanted us to do. It was like $2,000 of free product, but in order to get all that, at first it was a video review every month, along with a written review every month, and we had to be open to the public. So often they would send us some other items we could raffle off to people at these open houses and stuff. So really, it was a back and forth. We were able to find a way to talk with the community, and Lionel also got their name out there. And we've been doing that since 2016. I think right now we're kind of in a dead period. They're always liking to change the program, because 2016 we tied with two other clubs, Chicagoland and then a division of TTOS, for Club of the Year. We did everything they asked, and then we've done that every year since, along with Chicagoland, TTOS, and then I think some we probably tied with somebody else just this past year. But I think that's supposed to start back up January. So hopefully we can still do that with the whole coronavirus stuff.
Yeah. Mm.
The whole ambassador thing that we've been doing and making all these reviews of these videos has really just skyrocketed the YouTube channel pretty much. I mean, it's not extremely popular, but I mean, we have a good fan base for it. And I think the reviews have kind of continued to drive us to make just videos in general for the YouTube channel of our train shows, and reviews that sometimes we don't even need.
Right.
We just do them for the fun of it because we enjoy it, and it's still promoting the hobby.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a very cool story. I didn't really know how that stuff worked behind the scenes, so I think a lot of people will be very interested once they hear about that and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anything else you guys want to add? I have a couple other questions about the club, but anything?
As far as nothing particular, I mean, like I said, we started. They wanted a review of a product once every month, and then a different year it was once every month, but it had to be something they sent us or something like that. And so we really this past year got down to where we only had to, for that program, we only had to make 4 videos, with product they sent us. And but I mean, like Chris said, I mean, we kind of just got in the groove of it. We saw that they were getting these videos were getting views, and figured, what, we're having fun with this. We're just going to keep going with it. I've recently I somehow end up with some disposable income, so I buy trains, so that gives us some product to go with.
Yeah, whenever we get something new, we're always like, hey, let's make a YouTube video.
Exactly.
Let's review it.
And then, I mean, I think the biggest thing that we've decided to take on is we've finally gotten to the point where we're ready to, as a club, to build a new permanent O-scale layout. And so we've just here within the past week put up a new video trying to start that, trying to document that, and hopefully show some techniques and stuff that all our other members use to build a layout. The bench work, electrical wiring. I'm in charge of the electrical side of the entire layout. So at the very least, you'll know about that, because I can answer those questions.
And hopefully that series that we made a new playlist of that just for the O-scale permanent layout that we're building. And so hopefully it brings in some views and people really find it enjoyable to see how we're going throughout the process, because we just tore down the old modular layout that's been up for how many years it's been living?
that layout started not too long after the club started in 1985. So that layout's a good 30 years old. It's got some wear and tear on it.
And so seeing like how we've taken that down and getting this one up as a placeholder, and then we start getting the bench work and everything started for the new layout, and then continually grow with videos and progression of the new layout from there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. That's a very interesting story. I actually saw that video a couple days ago. I definitely think it's a good idea because, kind of one of the reasons why I started this podcast is to offer advice for those who might be looking to get into the hobby and just need some guidance along the way. So I will definitely link that video in the description of my podcast. So if anybody has any questions, they can go to your channel and they can watch you progress as you build a layout and hopefully, take some pointers from that as well. Um, and stuff like that. So, what are some of the things, like, I guess, life lessons that you've learned with model railroading and stuff like that over the years?
It takes a lot of money, it seems like almost. It's what would be the word for that?
It's
It takes a lot.
model railroading is something that it's a very daunting thing, right? You open up a Lionel catalog, first thing you see is a Vision Line engine, and $2,000 for an engine, that's crazy, right? I mean, it's but at the same time, there's a whole nother world to that. It's not just the the absolute top line stuff. We're talking uh um I just lost my train of thought.
It's okay. It
But I
happens
mean,
to me all the time.
um did you have something? Because I'm lost now.
It's
Well, I
okay.
think, I don't think you have to look at. So in model railroading, if we're doing kind of like the life lessons or any teachable moments, I guess you could call it. I wouldn't say that you have to buy anything top of the line. It's really kind of whatever makes you happy. I mean, I have a 4x8 layout that I made to fold in half and take to train shows and connect to my buddy's 4x8 layout. And we did that for a long time. And if you want a big layout, not everyone can afford a huge layout, and that's not a problem in model railroading because there's always a market for however deep your pockets are. You could buy the $2,000 engine, and if you really want to spend that much money, but you can easily be happy with any other type of train. And 4x8 layouts, they're great to get started on, especially when you're young. And I would say don't start out huge and overwhelm yourself, because to me, model railroading is really a lot of a learning process. Not only in like just scenery, you have wiring, lighting, all the electrical stuff going
Right.
along with it, how to repair trains. There's a lot of different branches that you can get into in the hobby. You're never limited to anything at all.
I think where I was going was, there's nothing that says you can't do this.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's something you want to do, that's how you want, your layout or your world to be like. I mean, by all means, go with it. I mean, if the it's like when you're a kid, all the post-war NPC era Lionel, those things were, I mean, really cool because your imagination is just sitting there going and going, and you're thinking of all these different things that train can be doing. And that's one of the downsides as you grow up is you sometimes you lose that imagination a little bit, but at the same time, the layout you make, even if it's a 4x8, you have all kinds of things you can do inside that just it's your own world. You can do whatever you want. You can run that SD70 right next to an 1800 a general. I mean, there's nothing saying you can't.
Yeah, I've definitely had that problem as well. I kind of started a YouTube channel just to show that, like, you don't have to have a super huge budget to have a really cool layout that you enjoy, and stuff like that. And so that's kind of where I started with YouTube and everything. And I'm sure I've helped somebody along the way, but and stuff like that. So yeah, that's very cool. Very good pieces of information I think some people can take away from this. What this is kind of a cool question. I just randomly asked this in another podcast, and I got some crazy answers. What is the best train show you have ever been to?
I don't know. I don't know if I've had off the top of my head a best train show. I mean, I've only really been to a lot of local shows. So we put on a show every year. The local NMRA chapter puts on one every year. We used to have a national show that would come around to Century 2, our big convention center in town. They hadn't done that in a while, but I mean, every train show has always been um, always something different. There's especially when that national show would come around, there's all kinds of different layouts. I mean, all kinds of different things people are doing, and as soon as you walk into one gigantic room that's just full of nothing but trains, you just kind of you take a minute to take that in. I mean, it's just everybody's there just for trains.
I went to one, I don't remember how long ago. I think maybe 2007 or 2009, somewhere around there. I went to with one of my friends to the York, Pennsylvania train show. I don't know, is that in the same location every year?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say for me that would be probably the unique one or special train show that I've been to. I don't really remember too much of it, but I remember that there's a ton of trains there. But it's something I took home is all the big layout I remember and tons of trains everywhere. And I think that like anybody who's in the model railroading hobby should go to probably the York Train Show.
Yeah, and I think here just this last year, there was a large one in Denver, I think, and I thought would be really cool to go and check that out. I think I was busy that weekend, so I didn't have an excuse to go drive over there. But I mean, and so stuff like that. And there's been some in Kansas City, but I never made it up there. So, but there's always something different.
What would you say to somebody who's never been to a train show before?
You gotta come.
it's it's a whole nother experience. I mean, there's people that just are there to you think of a show, just there's different layouts there, just running trains, enjoying those trains. um you think of people just wanting to sell them, but it's not really. The vendors are there, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure they're there and they want to sell some things, maybe buy some things, but at the same time, the amount of history that can be inside a room at a show is I mean, enormous. You go to one table, you talk with one guy that's been in the hobby for 50 years, and then you go talk to another. I mean, that experience adds up so quick, and you can learn. It's almost too much. You can't take it in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah. Another thing that I find fascinating with this hobby is the history behind everything. All the Lionel post-war locomotives and, all those old trains that really influenced, what we see today. Chris, do you have anything to add?
Um, I honestly don't have too much to add to that. But I mean, if someone were to ask me, or like if I were to try and bring someone to a train show, I just, like I said, you have to come and experience it. If it's something that you haven't experienced before, going to a train show, a large train show, a small train show, I think it's something that you should, especially if you're open to, inviting new either hobbies or just like going and seeing different things in your life, because we only have so many years on earth. And so I think you should just go to a train show, learn, and hang out with someone who you can hang out with, and see all the different trains and see what there is to offer in the entire hobby.
That's some very good advice as well. I think a lot of people could get something from that as well. So, kind of wrapping things up here, your in history or your involvement with trains ever since the beginning, and stuff like that, and experiencing kind of what a train club is like and everything. How has being involved with a train club impacted your life and your participation in model trains or trains in general? Kind of like the community members that you've met and just influencing the youth and just anything of that spectrum. How did it affect your life personally?
I think the train club's been there to support us, push us along. I mean, if I'm just stuck in my basement, kind of doing whatever I want, I mean, you're talking 2004, 2005, YouTube wasn't really really there to catch on or anything. It was a place to see and hear all kinds of different model trains. I mean, Chris lives 30 miles north of Newton, so I mean, I never would have known about Chris until we kind of got talking at a train show actually at once. Just running trains.
That's how we met.
Yeah.
Because we were both in the club for a while and didn't really see much of each other too much. But then at the train show, we really hit it off with our running trains.
Yeah.
And so I think, that's one thing that the club has brought us together.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think without, the train club, we would have probably never known each other, other than maybe if we ran into each other through scouting,
Right. But, at the same time, there's so many scouts likelihood to coming across somebody that's like, you like trains too? What?
Yeah.
You hear that. It's like, I do that too.
No way.
So cool. We should hang out sometime, run trains
Exactly.
together.
Yeah. Yeah. You meet a lot of, especially at train shows, you can meet a bunch of different people and you run across all these different people and you meet people and become friends with them. And it's just really, I think it impacts us a lot. If we didn't have it,
right.
I think we would be definitely different in different places.
Even if you're younger, like we were going to train shows. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of experienced hobbyists out there. But it's like me, me and Chris, we're just there to run trains. And that's how we got connected. And you see somebody your age, and you want to go interact with them. Like I said, you're into this too. All right, let's hang out sometime, right?
Yep, definitely. And, that's kind of why I started YouTube, because I was on a lone island by myself and I was just like, there's got to be somebody out there, right? Like, come on. So started publishing on YouTube and stuff like that. And I got to know some people, but just not really on a scale that I wanted to be, kind of like with you guys going to the train club and actually getting to connect with people. And so obviously with the coronavirus and everything, it's really hard for me to get out. And, I've only been to one train show. And I got to meet some people. I met the guy who helped repair my trains, but and stuff like that. So it was just like I needed something more and to really, kind of connect with people, kind of like you guys do at the train club. And so I was like, why don't I just start a podcast, get to know some people, and maybe, kind of offer inspiration to somebody, or, it could just benefit somebody else besides me as well. And, I've already made 2 friends with this podcast going into it. And, we talk just daily just about trains. Like I get a text from somebody so and so and they're like, yo, check out my new S2 engine or something like that, right? It's just like we just share trains. I think that's very cool. And hopefully, one day when, things calm down, I can go out to a train show and get the same connection, or maybe a different connection with some people than I, do here and stuff like that. So
yeah, you and I are kind of the same. We just randomly text each other about train stuff all the time.
Yeah. I just drive it around. You see something different. It's like, oh, quick! I got to get a picture of that. Send that to Chris. It's and then Amtrak goes through Newton too, so that's always kind of interesting, especially 3 in the morning.
Yeah, Amtrak at 2 or 3 in the morning every night goes through my town and blasts its horn. Sometimes it's super late. Sometimes it's actually on time. But I mean, sorry, I actually this just came up in my head. I forgot we had the parade train at once. The train club, we bought a parade train that you and I kind of took command of for a while.
Yeah.
And brought to a couple different parades. I don't know how many we went to.
We did all kinds of different things. I think there's a video on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. It's probably one of the earlier ones, so it might be a little sketchy, but
you have to look pretty far back probably.
But that was a lot of fun too. Still need to put that thing back together.
Yeah, we've got a freight train that's got an engine and a caboose, right?
Yeah, I think what happened that caboose fell apart in the middle of a parade one time. Derailed us pretty good.
No pun intended, right?
Right, exactly.
All right, guys. Well, again, thank you for coming on. Do you have any closing thoughts before we end the episode today?
I don't. Nothing real I can think of. I mean, if this is a hobby, you even sparks your interest, go after it. I mean, you don't like we said, there's no reason to start big. You can start small. If it's something you like, you just kind of keep snowballing into it. and then all of a sudden you're neck deep in trains.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you're wanting to get, if you see any roll across any model train stuff and it takes your interest at all, keep going on with that interest and snowball into it so you end up being surrounded and drowning in trains. And model railroading is whatever you want and what you can make it be.
All right. Well, that's some very great advice. And again, thank you guys for coming on the podcast. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.